Say what? Say what radio show. With no agenda. It's always a surprise. But if we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong. Saturdays, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 5 Pacific. On Haggy Shack Radio at haggyshack.com. Say what? We are live.
Oh. Okay, this is the Say What show. It's Saturday, how can it be, June 4th. And this is the first Saturday of the month, and so our special super duper guest host is Debriel. And Deb, you know, because we've had her on a number of different shows. But she's also an extraordinarily talented interviewer. We just love the way that she interacts with people, and that's why we're trying to make her. Well, she's going to be on every first Saturday. She'll be with us, and a lot of times we might hijack somebody from Dolly's show, but Sonny got hijacked by the telephone and he wasn't available. So, but in the meantime, Deb and I had we were reading about Sasquatch. Did I say that right? Sasquatch. Bigfoot, Yeti, the abominable snowman, goes by a whole bunch of different names. So, Colleen, that's what you missed, is that while you were on with Dolly, I sent it over to Deb, and we've been looking at this.
You've been looking at what?
At a whole, what's her name? Joan?
Joan.
Here,
I'll put it in chat, and I'll put it for you, Colleen, too. Wait, if I can do this. All right, I just put it in chat. Her name is Ocean.
Joan Ocean is her name. And this is such, I mean, it's just, because, Colleen, you know, we talk about the synchronicity of subjects. And this was one of those type of things where last Saturday, and it all goes back to last Saturday, we had Yvonne on with us, Yvonne Palermo. And I said to her, where did you grow up? And she said, oh, Washington, home of Sasquatch. And so that started me relating the story about the 9 Russian kids, young adults, they were in their 20s, who had been killed. In a very bizarre, in the 60s, a very bizarre story, very popular story. I've come across it many times. And I had just seen this 1-hour presentation of new information that's been released, because at the time, the Soviet government made it a secret. They just closed off everything and wouldn't release any of the pictures taken by the forensics people, nor the pictures that were in the cameras of the kids, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, anyway, we had that conversation, and Yvonne was, I don't want to hear that the Yeti might have been responsible for killing these people. I don't want to hear this, you know. And I didn't either, but it was just sort of like, it just was like what happens on Say What? Something comes up, right? I got off that radio show at 8 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock I was watching a 2-hour presentation of the same story.
Wow.
Okay? Now, this one was different in that there was this insane man who talked a Russian TV host kind of person to go with him in investigating the new information and the old story, you know, what they had seen and stuff. Now, I had already seen a photograph that was found in one of the cameras that absolutely shows what looks like a Yeti or a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch in the woods, in the camera of these kids that eventually got killed. Well, this story was one of the more insane stories I've ever seen with this guy, because he goes to the original spot, which was in the Ural Mountains in Russia. And there was a mountain, and I don't remember what they called it, Devil's Mountain or Dead Mountain or some bad name to it. And the last place that they had camped was sort of on the slope of this mountain versus being in the woods not too far away. And it seemed like an odd place to camp, especially for experienced people. But that's where the tent was found. The one tent they found the tent, they found shoes in it, they found that there had been slits made in the tent at eye level, like you're standing up in the tent looking out. And then the tents were supposedly, shredded, but when they analyzed the photographs from the forensic information, they were actually cut from the inside like they were trying to get out of the tents. Okay? So, this guy, he goes there and he's like rehashing the information that I basically already knew. And he decides that they've got to go to the Siberian wilderness to a cave where it's supposedly a lair for the Yeti. And he drags this poor woman into this cave with him, where the people that are with him, the film crew and all, they ain't going in there. They're not going to sleep in there. And he pitches a tent. They hear a noise. He goes running after something. Ends up, they'd already found what looked like a lair. They were actually pitched the tent right in front of inside the cave, right in front of where this lair is. And he hears this noise. He starts running after it, and he finds a second lair, Well, this poor woman, I don't know how she even survived, because she was absolutely terrified. But she wasn't really smart either, because he convinces her to go back to the original place. And at this time, he's found out about, what happened was that in the original investigation, as they looked at it more and more, and they were able to determine the exact date that they think these kids were killed. Now the kids, there was only 4 of them that seemed to have actually physical damage done to them. 2 of them died of hypothermia, and 3 of them died, but there didn't seem to be any real indication, or at least it didn't come out in either of these shows as to what killed them. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't get it. So, it was really the whole thing, and they weren't in the same place, they were in different places. It was just an insane story. But what he found out was that, what the investigators found out initially was that at the same date, the night that this supposedly all happened, there had been a white light in the sky. And so this guy was able to go and discover that a couple hundred miles from them was a Soviet missile establishment, facility, and that night they had set off a missile that they purposely crashed. But they crashed it in what was supposedly considered a desolate, and no people would be there. And it just happened to be the very place that they had pitched their tent, basically. So you're going like, okay, so at the time that they've got the tent, and they're scared, and they're watching something, and they've got a picture of Sasquatch, and one of the girls said, so, the snowman lives, because Yeti in that area was called the snowman. And, and this was a journal that they found after the fact. And so now you've got a situation where the Yeti are seemingly at the ones that were stalking them, maybe, and that's why they moved into an area away from the forest so they could see anything coming. And that's why they put the slits in I don't know why the hell they didn't run the other way. I would have. One guy did leave. One guy left about 4 days into it, and he's the only one that survived. I don't know, it wasn't even clear as to why he had left. So anyway, the supposition is that this missile, now the Yeti is, like stalking, but not stalking probably. Who are these people in our neighborhood? What are they doing here? And watching them. And so the hikers were watching the Yeti, putting holes in their little tents and everything. And then this missile comes and crashes and blows up right in the same area, which threw the Yeti into a frenzy of basically went out and killed him. That's what the story comes out in the second 2-hour thing. Well, this idiot guy, he decides he's going to see if he can't duplicate the situation. So he gets a bunch of flares and starts shooting flares out. He's got the tent just where they had the tent, puts out these flares, and, and the film crew again would not stay with him. And this woman was with him. I hope they were having really good sex, because I can't imagine any reason she was staying with this idiot. And, no, they didn't see the Yeti, but you did hear some really weird sounds. So, then, I'm listening to, what was the name of the show? What's Justin's, I think it was, wasn't it, what show was it?
Spooky Pants?
Tell them what happened on Spooky Pants, because because I sort of was trying to do other things at the same time. And then all of a sudden I realized they were talking Bigfoot again. Can you tell what they were talking about? You remember?
Well, and as you know, I also am doing several things at the same time. But, Edwina, and they go camping and stuff. But she was hearing noises and all of that. And she said she heard it speak.
Wow.
And she just had this overwhelming feeling, and her thoughts were it was saying, don't leave.
Aww.
And so she started gifting this Sasquatch. She would take things to it once a week. And after a while, one is she buys an organic kind of strawberry milk or something and takes little things up there for the Sasquatch, as gifts to earn their trust and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, she said she would make sure they were in bags so animals wouldn't smell them, that it would take, somebody that knew that what was in them.
Right.
And organic stuff and stuff that wouldn't go bad.
Right. Well, and two things that she had, like from their campsites and stuff that would come up missing, the Sasquatch would apparently bring it back.
Wow.
Later, one thing, I think one was a light of some sort that she hadn't seen in well over a year that was brought back. And then she'd say, look, I do want to believe in you. I do want to trust in you. I need something so that I know this is you and not some other animal or something. And, so it would bring things and put it up against this tree for her. But she goes about once a week to do that. And I want to hear more about that. We do want to have her on, more often, and I'm going to read her book on the Sasquatch as well.
Well, I was laughing because, it's like I say, all of a sudden I realized they're talking about that. And she says she's talked to the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, and Dino and she start golfing, and Yvonne goes, wait a minute, I'm still on the fact that you talked to Sasquatch. It was like, oh yeah, I had a conversation, it was like, and that's kind of the way that I was reacting to it. Now she also mentioned somebody named Naomi, and I think it might have been her daughter, who was seemingly getting telepathic information.
Well, her daughter is quite gifted as well, and I don't recall the daughter's name. You can go to her website, and I can bring that up later if you want, and check that out, because they do ghost hunting and all that sort of stuff as a family as well. And her daughter, I think she graduates from high school this year. So she does, and she's always been gifted, as far as being able to determine spirit around them, energy and such. So.
Well, one of the funny stories, or the story that really kind of, I think probably, made her feel like, no, this is real, is when she went up to the gifting place and there was a bag that was torn up like an animal had done it. And she was kind of upset. She thought maybe that this was all some delusionary thing she had put herself through. But then she noticed that there seemed to be construction stuff or clearing of the land not too far away. And so she said to them, look, if you want me to move the gifting spot, let me know. And the next time they went up there was a trail of bags and ripped off pieces of bags, and that they just kept following. And she said, along this scavenger hunt kind of thing, she did find things that had been missing for over a year, and that they were shown another place to put the gifting, And that seemed to be, when you ask a question and then you get such a clear answer, was when she really got into it. And that's when she got into the talking and stuff. So, now, from my standpoint, and we're going to get into the article that Joan Ocean wrote, because, my God. Anyway, but from my standpoint, I did when I was growing, as a kid. I was into ghosts, looking at ghosts and looking at UFOs, but never had heard about Bigfoot. This was not something that came up on my radar. I mean, I'm that old that it was before Bigfoot was acknowledged. And my brother, who I think he must have been about 14, he and his friends had been out in the woods, right near our house, maybe a mile into the woods from the house. And he proceeded to tell me about seeing this thing that he described as what we now know is a Sasquatch, and that he and his friends, his 3 friends, had seen it. And it was like, I'd never heard of this. I thought it was before anybody did drugs, so I didn't know why these kids would be making up this story, but I knew absolutely that he was telling me what he had seen. And it wasn't, I bet, 10 years later, maybe more, before I started hearing about this Sasquatch, this Bigfoot. So from the get-go, because of this experience that my brother had, I didn't doubt them. I just was like, oh my God, this must be what he saw. Now, Deb, because you and I sort of, when we started out on this today, we were going like, well, I don't really look at this, but let's take a look at it. Seems to be trending. Right?
Right.
What was your
trending? Because it came up on JP's show too, and I've only heard a couple things over the years and never really piqued my interest. But when you sent the Joan Ocean, something that was said on JP's show kind of freaked me out. And then when I read Joan Ocean's article, when it got to one part, I found it fascinating. And I happened to know her and her work with dolphins. I knew her in Sedona when she lived there. So yeah, it's coming up. So there's definitely a reason, and that you said you had been on 4 shows where it came up. So this is
exactly
this week. So
this week, yes. Well, Saturday yes. I mean, this is Saturday, but just before that, I think it was 2 days before, it's like Thursday that I'd seen the first show. Okay. And then Saturday I saw the second show. Plus we were doing it on that show.
Hold on.
And then I'd hear the one with Colleen's group. And then there was, then Walt gives me this, he says, well, I know somebody that and he gave me the link to Joan's, site, but I didn't look at it until today. I didn't have time.
The server has gone down again, so hold on just a second while we get it back. I've been having trouble this weekend.
You're breaking up. I can't. What are you saying? The servers, we're not telecasting?
Right.
Oh, when did that happen?
Just about a moment ago.
Okay.
Here.
Well, I've had trouble all weekend, really.
Wow.
With it going down periodically. Which is, really weird. It's down, but Skype is up.
Yes, that's really weird.
To open it back up. Okay, we're back. Yeah. Okay, we're back.
Whee!
Nancy, are you here?
Where are we? Oh yeah, Nancy, are you still? Okay.
Well, if I got my mic on, I'd be here.
Okay.
Okay, so we seem to have had a glitch there. I'm not exactly sure when we went down, but we were just discussing the fact that both Deb and I were not like fanatically watching Bigfoot. It wasn't something we were being drawn to. But then starting last Thursday, I see this first show, then I go on the radio, there's another show with me talking about it because it was brought up by Yvonne. And then an hour after the show stops, I'm in the 2 hours again talking Yeti and all this other stuff. And then I hear, I don't even know what day that this show's going on, and all of a sudden they're talking about Bigfoot, and then Walt sends me this link to Bigfoot and Joan Ocean, and I'm going like, I don't know what this is all about, but it seems to be trending, and it seems to be some kind of a message that we're supposed to get and talk about. And where else should we talk about it except to say what show? You can say what? Bigfoot? You know? Okay, maybe it would be good to, tap into what you know about Joan Ocean, because really this is my first introduction to her, and she works with a dolphin.
Mm-hmm. I met her in Sedona years ago. I was in Sedona, I think 2001. I worked there doing color readings. And she came in, she was a friend of the owner of one of the shops I worked in, and she also, if I'm right, my brain isn't really well today, I'm just going to tell you that, so I'm not very linear. I can't type, I can't remember things, so I've been making notes, but anyway, I'm going to do my best here. She came in, I think a few times, and at that point, she was already communicating with dolphins, but I don't think she'd gone to Hawaii yet, or I'm not really sure. And she also, I think, was a part of one of our channeling groups, because we were all kind of friends there around that time. And this person, I think it was Summer Bacon, channeled Dr. Peoples. But anyway, she came in and actually had a reading with me, I believe, and we talked quite a bit, and she was really telepathic and really good at tuning into dolphins, and then would do dolphin healings, and I think she moved to Hawaii or maybe lives both places, and I had a friend, and this is one of the names I cannot remember right now, who wrote 2 books, and I'm mentioned in one of them, and I can't believe I can't remember her name. But anyway, she actually went to Hawaii and was trained by Joan how to access that frequency and do healings by going into your body with the dolphins. And she practiced on me. And it was pretty cool because I could feel it. So I find it fascinating. I would
now, Can you elaborate a little on what they were doing to you?
Well, this friend that I am so sorry if her name pops in, I will say it. I can't even remember the lady that I know this friend through right now. But my friend, I think she's from Switzerland, she did a distance. So we were both just on the cell phone. Then we got off the phone, much like you do a distance Reiki or something. And she went in my body and brought the dolphin energy in, and I could feel them in there. And then the dolphins also relayed information to her. And then when we were all done with it, she called me later and then told me what she got, and then I told her what I felt. And she learned that particular thing from Joan. She already had amazing ability. She used to be a forensic medical something. I'm bad at words at all today, but she used to be a doctor. I don't know if that's what they call it in Switzerland, where they go in and look at, when somebody dies and they do autopsies and they look at all the internal organs. And then she wrote a book. Her first book was on how she could really see how the astrological glyphs for each sign really related to the organs that they were associated with and how they even look like it. So this girl was already really tuned in.
Okay, now let me stop you there for a second. She was looking at the organs.
Yes, in the dead bodies.
in the dead body. But because it's all quiet and you can actually look at it, she was seeing the shapes of the organs.
Yes, she could really see, because she was fascinated by astrology, and she really could really see how, because in astrology they'll say certain signs relate to certain organs, which right now I'm not going to remember which is which, but like the colon or the kidneys or the uterus or whatever it is. And she could see the glyph, and she wrote a whole book on it, which I don't have right now either, but how, and described and everything, how the organs look like the symbols or the glyphs of the astrology. So she was already tuned in. She already had all these awarenesses. So she met Joan and went to Hawaii, and then took a training session, I believe, with Joan to learn how to do these healing dolphin things. And I've lost touch with her right now, but I'm still in touch with a lady we both know. So I don't know what she's up to now, but I could find out for further conversation. But that's,
see if she'll come on the show.
She probably would love to. So
yeah, because you never know what. There's so much. Everybody has so many different ways of doing things.
Right.
But this to me is fascinating. So I just got to go back to this one more time.
Okay.
The physical organs and the glyph, the figure we know for like the cancer, the crab looking thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's supposed to be overlooking, but let's say it's the stomach. So when she would look at this dead person's stomach, if it was the cancer, she saw the crab image.
Yep.
Wow.
When it was opened up, when she was actually in there. And it took her, because I rented the room. It's a long story. My whole life's a long story. But I rented the room she rented from this lady. That's our connection. And then we had another connection. But so she wrote that book in that room here in California, in a different town that I'm in now. And she told me it took her about 10 years to really put the whole book together. But when she actually started writing it and getting it, then it went faster. But when she left that room and then I moved in, she had finished the book. And she's written a second one that I never saw, and I'm not sure it's been published in English. That one was. And I don't remember the name, but I can find all this out for another show, or I can type it to you in Skype, or if anybody wants to know, I'll find out. But the second book, I'm not sure what it was on, but she had written me and asked my permission if she could mention me in the later part of the book, because we had a really interesting drive to Sedona from California. I drove her over there, and it was the first time she ever lived there, so I showed her all around. And so she is fascinating. But that's my connection with Joan also. So I'd met Joan, and when I saw that name, I had to really go look and Google to make sure this was the same Joan that had lived in Sedona, and it is. So I am sure I met her. But the most fascinating part of the article to me, I was just like, wow, it made so much sense, because I'm really tapped into dolphins also, just on my own, was the biological infrasounds that they talk about in that article. And I really think that she's onto something with that, because Joan was saying that when dolphins and whales accept you into their pod, that there's this big sense of calm and peace, and that she felt the same thing when she was trying to tap in to the Bigfoots, because I guess somebody had asked her, hey, I'm interested in Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Would you have any ideas how to tap in to talking to them like you do with the dolphins? And Joan was able to. But she also said that is the biological form of that. It's a frequency, but like the military uses the non-biological form, which is low frequency, which can harm, which really upsets me, because I know I've read things over the years, well, they will do low frequency under the ocean and kill all kinds of sea life. But I'm not going to think about that right now, because I get really upset. So yes, it was a fascinating article, and I find it really fascinating that it's trending, because the feeling I got reading that is that we're ready. We're ready. That means humanity, our frequency is upping enough, or at least with several of us, and they say it's going to be all of us, where we're going to have this very same ability. And we're going to tap into it. So I'm pretty excited. Of course, I'm never excited, ever.
Well, first off, to confirm what you just said, at one point she was trying to develop the ability to telepathically she didn't have to develop it, it was there. they would get in her mind. They would send her pictures, and let's go back to the beginning, because this thing is such an incredible story. Okay, it starts out with Joan basically getting an email from some guy. Remember, she starts out with this guy sends her this email, and she it all began with an email. A person I do not know contacted me in an email and asked me how I communicate with the dolphins. He was seeking advice and suggestions because he said, I'm trying to communicate with Bigfoot, and I was wondering how you communicate with dolphins. I read the email twice and wondered if the writer was joking, so I answered it cautiously. Yes, I communicate by using body language, swimming the way they swim, diving with them, and trying to match their pod behavior. It seems to work. They come very close to me. To my surprise, the person wrote back with even more enthusiasm and proceeded to describe his interactions with Sasquatch, explaining he is feeding them by using a box he made that requires delicate fingers to open the catch lock on the box to get the food. They are opening the box in a way no other animal could, and so he was very excited about that. Now, my curiosity was aroused, so I asked him many more questions. Soon an ongoing correspondence was initiated, and I learned many things about the Sasquatch. So she ends up going to this area where another woman named Susan lives and had contact with Sasquatch. Okay, somehow she gets, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but you should read it. It's astounding. And so what happens is that she starts to talk to this woman she doesn't really know named Susan. Okay, so a new friend who lives on the edge of the woods told me the Sasquatch live near her and she knows them. I sent her one of my dolphin books to give as a gift to the Sasquatch. 2 weeks later, I received a gift in return. The Sasquatch had chosen a rock for me, a heavy quartz rock weighing 5 pounds with many little crystal bits within it, gleaming in the light. Along with it came a piece of crumpled paper. On it was the carefully printed words, for water woman. Okay, now she works with the dolphins. Could this be true? I was still doubting the veracity of this. It came from the medicine woman of the Sasquatch family in a southeastern location of America, near my friend, who I will call Susan to ensure her privacy. Apparently, the great-grandmothers of the Sasquatch family have had contact with white people and learned to read and write in English, although they had their own language as well. This may not be true of all Sasquatch people, but it is definitely true of this clan. Having read my book, or at least receiving it, and understanding who I am, through some inner sensing abilities, they named me Water Woman. Incredulous as it sounded, I withheld judgment until I could learn more. So she actually goes there.
Yep.
You know? And
I think it's fascinating how that pod of the Bigfoots had learned English, and they would write letters, and then they show it on the article where they would answer back in 1 or 2 words. I thought that was so cool.
Yes. Okay, now, like for instance, what she's talking about is that Susan wrote a letter, and Susan would she would cook them like dinners. and leave them on a picnic table on her property, and then leave, and when she would come back, all of it was all, and she would even leave bags for leftovers. Right? So she's developed this relationship with the Sasquatch. So she writes a letter and she leaves it, so they can read it, and it said, "Letter from Water Woman for you. She is planning on coming to visit with Dream Man. They will come to see. If you want to see them, you can." And they would leave, when they left a message like this, they would leave a black magic marker, and in clear, very nice printing, it says yes. Then there's another one, and it says, "Thank you so much for the gift you gave me." And this is from Joan, okay? And it says, "Thank you," and then she says something much, and she says, "Much power." And then it says, I happy. Wise birds see all. Keep well and safe. Much good. God bless you, water woman. You know, so it's like now there's this writing that's going, this is supposed to be somebody that nobody knows about. And they're leaving each other notes.
And gifts.
And gifts.
Well, and there's too the whole thing, you know, that they want to make them out to be just dumb animals.
Nope.
You know, and you got people wanting to find them so they can hunt them. Now, these beings can read and write.
Well, at one point they said they couldn't meet her because there were hunters looking for her and it was medicine woman, her and her children, and so they were staying underground. And we'll get into this underground thing because that leads into another story altogether, Colleen. I mean, you've got to...
And I've got another piece from JP and his friend, too, that I heard the other day that I don't know about, but I'd never heard that either. So there's a lot to this.
Go ahead. Do you remember it?
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly. That part of my brain isn't good today, but I believe, I can't remember his friend's name. I can see his face, can't remember his name. He's got another radio show, I think, that he does, maybe from the UK or Ireland. And he researched or was big into the Sasquatch, and he claimed, because JP was talking about pyramids and this other guy was talking about Coral Castle, I think that was the show. You know, I do so many shows now here and there that I can't remember what's what. But JP said that this gentleman who researched this a lot claimed that, I was like, wow, that the Bigfoot came through, I think he said like a portal through the pyramid from Maldak, from the planet that blew up. But I don't know if I have that right. But it was I wish JP was here and then he could correct me like he likes to because I'll get it off a little. But yeah, so they definitely are other dimensional for sure.
Well, at one point they talked about that. I don't know that I'm going to find it. That they were here before man, basically. That they were the forefathers of man. And let me see if I got this, how they said it. And that the men today, humans today, were like the Sasquatch of way back. And so the Sasquatch now are demonstrating, that's one of the things that she brought out, that they're demonstrating different capabilities that they have without actually showing themselves in a physical kind of way. For instance, they would be sitting around a fire, and all of a sudden a rock would come out of nowhere and land right in the fire. Remember that?
Yeah, barely. I don't know if I read that part. All right.
Okay, because I did get a little farther into it. Yeah, and you know, you don't. All of a sudden, a rock just comes out of nowhere and boom, right into the fire. And she was there with a friend of hers, Jean Duc, I think his name was, and he's all of a sudden he starts jumping up and down saying, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And there was a number of people there, and they said, "See what?" And he reaches down and picks up a rock. He said it just fell out of the air because he had just voiced some doubt about them.
Right.
And so they threw it so that he was the only one that saw it.
And they said a lot, and they say that on everything I've ever heard, that the biggest thing that keeps us from accessing that is our own fear, and that these are gentle beings, and that gives me hope that if they are like us, earlier, maybe we're going to get back to our gentleness and our non-warlike factor. But the fear is the first thing that'll block it. I think Joan even talked about that a little bit. But if you can get over the fear, and that they're not going to harm us.
Yeah, she talked about that a couple of times.
I've heard that. Too.
Yeah, and also she did talk in terms of the ultrasound frequencies that you were explaining.
Yeah.
That the ultrasound is very low energy. And so they use it in
infrasound, she calls it, biological infrasound.
That's right. And what they were doing is that they could imprint an emotion on the sound that is not audible by the human ear, but you can feel it all around you. And so if there was somebody with guns, they would put out the sound of fear.
Ah.
Okay, and then if it was, and like in her case, she was really not having a good time. I forget what had happened, but she was in a state of fear. And all of a sudden she found this incredible energy just surrounding her. I'm trying to get the stuff out of the way of the cat, who's decided that he's going to have to sit right in the middle of everything. Coffee's being moved. Okay. She cat. All right, you happy? Good. All right, so she was saying that this peace came over her, and that was, the opposite side of the same ability that they have.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I found very meaningful was when she had been out there and she was in contact with them, and to demonstrate some of the things that they're trying to teach. Okay. Okay, and they do. She said that they also communicated. Okay, she's sort of in a meditative state, and she's telepathically in communication with them. She's not physically seeing them, right. But she is in communication with them. And she said they also communicated that they spend time in the coolness of their underground homes. The area is very dry right now, and everyone is wishing for rain. As I sit in the quietness for another 15-20 minutes, there's a sudden noise like a heavy raindrop. It is a shower of tiny pebbles falling from the top of the nearby trees, through the branches and onto the ground in front of the porch. They do not touch me, but I can see them falling as if from the sky. Now that is pebbles. Not rain, but pebbles. But they had just been talking about rain. A phenomenon like this takes someone to create it. It is not a natural phenomenon. This is how the Sasquatch make contact in a mysterious and also non-threatening way. They let me know they are nearby. I understand it is another sign of welcome from the Sasquatch. Quietly I continue to communicate. Is there anything I can do to help you, to help the earth? And the answer? Teach as you do about the passion and compassion you feel for all animals, for all life. Teach from your sensitivity about us. People will listen to you and begin to understand.
Wow. That brought tears. Wow.
Now this is, the next thing here is overcoming fear, so maybe we should
okay.
really address that. I continue to stare into the darkness. There is a dim light on me from a Coleman lantern. I am looking at the ground to the place where the pebbles harmlessly dropped. The silence is very thick. Suddenly I hear heavy footsteps in the crispy foliage just beyond the nearby trees. Loud, heavy, approaching me, each step placed strangely far apart. My heartbeat increases, and I'm sure my quickly palpitating heart is visibly shaking my body, a moment of fear. Then I remind myself who it is, the Sasquatch people. In my mind, I explain to them that in human films and movies, sounds of footsteps in the night are a cause for fear. Most people automatically react that way. Now the fear is gone as I acknowledge their presence near me. There are 3 heavy steps, the last one a shuffle, then 2 more heavy steps, and that is all. Where did they go? How can they walk without being heard? Do they dematerialize? I remain listening in the way the dolphins have taught me, hearing the faintest, most minuscule sounds. All is silent, not even a bug buzzing or a squirrel running across the ground.
Wow. Because they do, since they're multidimensional, they definitely phase in and out whenever they want. So, wow. But
yes, at one point she was talking about, the medicine woman said that they had to be careful of the rifles because sometimes they don't see them coming. They can be hurt. They can't dematerialize fast enough. At least that's what Joan was getting from them. They also were able to send them images, and she did, I hope she's written a book about this, because she didn't really get into the history of the land that they were in, that she said she was getting whole history stories, she and people that were with her. And one of the things she said was that the wise ones, that there's apparently Sasquatch, and then there's the wise ones, may be related to the Adena people, who were tall and powerfully built, women over 6 feet tall and men over 7 feet tall. They are described as a clan of strikingly different people of great presence and majesty. They also said that the wise ones can erase your mind so you forget, you talk to them. They said you won't forget the information, but you might forget where you got it from.
I love it.
They can walk 10 to 20 miles an hour.
Dang.
Okay, now this is another thing. Now down here in Florida, I was telling my friend Steph. Now Stephanie's just about 30, well, about half my age, okay? And I was telling her about the stories about the Yeti and now I said, for some reason Bigfoot's trending. And she goes, "Oh, really?" She says, "Well, we used to see him all the time." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, when we go out into this, because she lives north of me, but the Everglades is all, right, a lot of the western building in all of this South Florida area is really on the Everglades. You're in the Everglades." And when she was growing up, she would go out into where they had the cows, they also had a lot of cows out there, grazing and stuff. And that's where you get the magic mushrooms. Okay? Now, her generation was a generation that, they talk about the drugs were done in the 60s. Man, I can't tell you how many drugs these kids were really having access to. And that it was very much part of their culture, much more so than the 60s even. And so one of them was mushrooms. So they would go out into and she said, we all saw them. And I said, what did you see? And she said, she said they called him the skunk man, but it was what you would describe as Bigfoot. And I said, so you've actually seen Bigfoot or skunk man? And she says, oh yeah, and not only that, but you can smell him. And that was something that, was brought out every time they talk about skunk man in these, stories they do, right? And they all say that he's called skunk man because of this terrible smell. But what what Joan explained is that they can put out these terrible smells. She said the first night she was out there, she thought somebody had left, some old sneakers. Remember? She said there was some old sneakers left by my tent because it was just this. She said I could hardly sleep because of the smell. But that these smells are associated with the Sasquatch and Bigfoot and skunk man. But they put them out there as a way of just getting people out of the area.
I grew up in both Indiana and then Florida, and I thought it was interesting. Colleen was talking about that other show. I think it was called Spooky Parts, that they had sightings in Indiana, which makes sense. We have a lot of forest there, or we used to. But in Florida, I do remember hearing, of course I never had any experience with it, about Skunk Man. And we were always going to the Everglades. It's right there, But I do remember, and I never really put it all together, that that's a form of Bigfoot, or it's the same kind of energy. But that makes sense.
Yeah. She said that sometimes it feels like we're subjects of a Sasquatch research project when they're out there.
Wow. Yeah. I know.
Here's another one. One evening, with tremendous growls and animal sounds, they came crashing through the woods, running directly towards a group of hunters sitting around the fire pit. The men stood up and prepared to run. At that moment, the Sasquatch disappeared. Now, she also says, Colleen, was there any more in that show that you remember that we should mention right now?
Not that I'm recalling, because it was also about ghosts and all that, but not so much about the Sasquatch that I recall at the moment.
It seems to me that they ran out of time, and because it even went over for a while.
Oh yeah, because she initially started talking about camping in southern Indiana. I would imagine down around Brown County, and going to use this public restroom, and an experience she had, and she had brought this spirit back with her when she went home. And she does, as I said, the family does paranormal research, and they've got all the gadgets and such. And there were some voice recordings where this guy had given his name and how he had died, and some other information. And as it turned out, this fellow had been...
His name was Walter.
Walter, yes. And you can Google him and find out all kinds of information and articles on him. But she went into how he had been murdered and all of that, and quite amazing. And then she touched in on the Sasquatch subject, and quite fascinating.
Wow.
But yeah, the information that she had gotten, and these people who had murdered him were arrested several weeks later. And the information that came out, she was checking against the audio that she had gotten and information that she was getting and her daughter were getting from this fellow who stayed with him for quite a while. And was like, oh my gosh, you know. So, well worth a listen.
That makes me think of William. Maybe I should start trying to research that more, that kid that got murdered here. And I love Brown County, Colleen, don't you? I love it down there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now, do they have you know anybody that's ever seen a Bigfoot, Colleen?
Well, I was talking to, I was on Facebook, and my daughter called me from Facebook, which I wasn't aware you could do that. So, of course, I was scrambling around going like, I don't have a mic hooked up, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she had a friend that she'd gone to school with come over, and they were reading some of my Facebook posts and saw that one, and Allie's like, Colleen, you're not going to believe this, but I went to Brown County several years ago, and I saw a Sasquatch. She said
wow.
it was about 9 foot tall, she said. And she also said, and stink.
Mm-hmm.
So she mentioned that smell as well. And
where was she? Was she in the woods? Was she in her backyard?
Well, if you're in Brown County, you're pretty much in the woods. I mean, it's this huge forest with rolling hills, which we don't have many of in Indiana until you get down south, southern Indiana.
Beautiful.
Close to the rivers and such. But yeah, it's very heavily wooded. There is a lot of camping and horseback riding and trails and stuff down through there. Is it a state park or a federal? I can't remember.
A lot of empty areas, too, with not a whole lot of civilization.
Yeah.
So was she out of the car, and tell us a story.
Well, that's all she really said at that point. She was scared, of course. But that's all she really said, because they were out there, they were camping, goofing off, partying and all that stuff. But she's supposed to come by Monday to visit, so maybe I can find out more then, but it was just a short conversation on Facebook, because I was doing other things at the same time when they decided to call me.
Okay, it's the top of the hour. Let's take a break, and we'll come back. And if you guys want, we've got some more information on this. And like I say, maybe it's time to really start looking at the really divergent life forms we have on the planet. You know, it's getting more and more. I mean, because they also talk about the inner Earth people. So, we're going to take a break here. This is Say What, and we'll be right back after a little tune that Colleen's going to put up, I hope.
Yes, this is Silk Road by Kataro, and it's 4 minutes and 54 seconds. Alrighty, and we are back. At least I think so.
I'm here.
Yes. I was reading Deb's
Sorry, it was long.
message to me. Well, we're going to get into that.
Okay.
Not that I know a whole lot about it, but again, it's something that's trending. You never heard about this 2 years ago.
Okay.
And now it's trending, and it's like, wow. You know, when Walt and I kind of called on the beings of Earth and said, look, we can do this ourselves. You know, the nature spirits and the jinn and the angels and all of the souls and spirits of all of the animals and the plants, and we can do this. You know, I did not imagine how many others there might be that this is their home too.
Right.
And that's what seems to be being the lesson recently.
It's coming up a lot. Remember when you were on Max with Dolly and Max, and I only caught that one show and where you started channeling or speaking for Mother Earth, and I was hysterical. I was just crying and crying. And so there is a lot of information coming through to us from all different dimensions about this, and the Earth herself, big time. It's up.
Yeah. I also think that we're in a situation where we're being taught about maybe the fact that Earth is a sort of like a point in time and space, but that other dimensions are living here at the same time we are.
And interacting, and that we can all get along and work together. Yep.
Yes. It's something. It's, you know, we're beginning to understand the spider web.
Yep.
The web of life in a much. I mean, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. All of this stuff about, you know, the human community and coming together, and, you know, I didn't like it. I like me. I want to be an individual. I want to be able to be me. I don't want myself into some kind of a hive situation where, you know, collective consciousness. No, I wanted me. And what I've learned in the last few years, and especially because of World Spirit people, you know, we're all on the same basic fundamental trip, but we're all doing it in our own different ways. And yet, it's like we got a bunch of individuals as a group versus a group with some people in it.
Right.
You know? So it's bringing me to a point where now I'm thinking, oh, I can deal with other dimensions, and, you know, the full implication of being connected to everything.
Right. You know how it feels to me? Because I've had this discussion with a few people, and I feel the same way you do, and I think a lot of people at this station do, and that listen. But, you know, we're going into the age of Aquarius, okay? So that's unity, but what people are forgetting is Aquarius is also individuality. And so hive mind, yes, we're all connected, but hive mind can be AI or not have the individual element. And we can take the pluses of everybody's individual and join together and be that much stronger. But I think we might lose our strength when we go to the hive. I'm not real into that hive mind either. I'm not either.
But I can see how the concept of unity does not necessarily mean hive mind.
Yes, but a lot of people I don't think are making that distinction or discernment. I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but I get a real strong sense of that also, that there is a big difference between hive mind and unity.
Yes, and I got to tell you, I talk about this show all the time, and I can't tell you, I mean, I don't think I've ever been in such a profound TV show ever.
Okay.
And it's called Person of Interest. Now, for the first 3 years, it was cops and robbers more than anything else, but it was the reason that they got into a particular story was because Harold had built this machine that looked at all the cameras, was working through all the cameras, was processing everybody, knew everything about, I mean, like the NSA on steroids, you know, and knows everything about anybody and can project that this person is going to get into a problem. And their job was to figure out, well, is this guy going to murder somebody or is he getting murdered? And then to stop it. That was what the first 3 years was about. Then in the fourth year, they began to, well, actually at the end, about halfway through the third year, they began to introduce another machine that was Harold's machine, but not having been nurtured with sub-programming that Harold put in his machine to keep it from becoming a terrible thing. That it would work with human beings instead of, going amok and controlling human beings. This other machine, called Samaritan, is definitely male. His machine is female, and the Samaritan concept is human beings kill each other. They do terrible things to the environment. They are awful things, and it's better that this AI with no, whatever that drives humans into this condition, and everything's going to be better if we go with this AI. Okay?
Yeah.
And now you've got the dark side with this AI too. All of the people there are being presented is basically dark. Well, they were very lucky in that they got a chance to wrap everything up, and they were given one more season. And they are delving into the concept of AI in ways that are so profound and so philosophically, when they started up last year I was like devastated. Oh, please let them come back, let them finish this story. Because at that point, you had, you had one of the main characters, the good people, who was in telepathic communication with the machine. And she ends up meeting a young boy who's in telepathic communication with Samaritan. And the dynamics of this very short conversation that they had just was mind-bending. Wow. Two AIs said, I'm the good one, you're the bad one, why do you think you're good? No, I'm good. And it was like, whoa. But they got this chance to do this final season. And
so is it this season and last? Like if we look up persons of interest and get, because I can do that online and get the seasons, so it would be last year and this year's shows that deal with. Okay.
Yeah, it really, the early shows, and you can see they're being repeated on television right now, the early shows. But it really was the second, this last season and this season where that storyline really, they got it together.
Well,
I could see him struggling with it.
Yeah. Because that's happening, they say, with the internet now, and we're definitely, this is going to be a big thing coming up too with this, and it's interesting that they're seeding the TV shows with it. No accident there.
No, none whatsoever, and that was why I was like stunned when they were allowed, when they gave them a go-ahead for, another show. I'm thinking, wow, who's in charge? Because this is something I wouldn't think. I was stunned at the stuff they were getting into last year. I thought they're not good. They'll be canceled. I've seen lesser shows canceled for that.
Right. Thanks for mentioning it. I will definitely look that up. Persons of interest.
Now they're in their last three programs that will, I think it's the last three coming up. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a cult classic. Wow. Because they have gone places that, and I'm like crazy. I'm going like, oh my God, where are they going to go with this? Because it's like, and they have not disappointed in, 2 seasons of show. I keep thinking this, they're going to lose it. They're going to lose it, and they haven't.
Right.
So it very much feels like it's channeled information that something big is a message in this.
Mm-hmm.
And Colleen knows. I've been talking about it forever since, last year when it started taking off in this direction. Yes, the AI kind of concept, and that's why we got into it, was because of this feeling of, is there a difference between the hive mind and this group soul thing that we seem to be part of,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what came first, the group soul or the group. That's one of those, chicken and egg things. But of course, it's the thoughts. Always the thought comes first. One of the things that I found very interesting about the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, in regarding Joan and her work with the ocean critters, was when she, and I can't remember exactly what the circumstance, but she sent them a picture seeing herself swimming with the dolphins. And their response was, well, that dolphin's the same size as you. That's not something that, it was something with fear. That's something that is not, you know, not going to be, you're not going to be afraid of a dolphin. They're the same size you are. And then,
well, hold on a minute. We have disconnected again. Which, we're back though. Are you guys back? Hello, hello, hello. The stream is back. I'm not hearing. Nancy? Are you guys here? No, the call has dropped. I will be calling them back.
well, they didn't do it all the time. I mean, they didn't have to do it. They would do it to have people scared.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was one of those things, well, we're not going to scream at you. We're just going to make it so stinky here you don't want to be here.
I got you. Okay.
Okay, that was what she understood was happening, because when they first got there, like I say, she thought that somebody had left a bad sneaker, because it was so awful. But they didn't know her. Because even though she had communication with the Sasquatch, it was one part of the Sasquatch.
Right.
That was something that she grew to understand too, is that there is a lot of Sasquatch out there. It was, you know, she was dealing with a medicine woman and her family.
And the ones that speak English or that had hung around, didn't she say the white people so they could read and write? And maybe they can't all do that, I don't know.
Well, she was talking about some neighbor that had come down with some kind of a respiratory thing, I think. And she said that medicine woman, the Sasquatch, spent a week with this woman, because the woman, and that's the other thing, is that they bring herbs.
Yes.
And you know, healing things.
Yeah.
So, it was, I just lost my train of thought.
Uh-oh, am I still here?
Yes, you're here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Some message. I can hear you.
Okay, that's what happened to me. All of a sudden, Skype acted weird, and I lost my train of thought. But she was, so when she first got there, then the Sasquatch in the area didn't know who she was. So they put out the stink.
Oh, okay.
You know, and and then she, again, some other time, maybe she was just talking about the stink thing, and because it's part of this, this concept of infrasound. Now let's go back to that, because I actually found the area that she's talking about it, okay?
Okay, and plus, I have to say, just for everybody, I didn't realize on that link that, because it's a long page, I didn't realize there's other parts to it. So Nancy, you've read a lot more than me, so I'm enjoying it. But just to let other people know, there's a lot of different pages associated with that link. So there's a lot to her story, to Jones, I guess. Right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not even sure how many of them, but let's see. Okay, it goes to part 4, and then it goes into Birdman, which that's where I stopped. And then it went into part 5, 6, in Australia, forest retreat, and then, you know, so there's there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is a lot of information on free on the internet. Just,
yeah,
you know, it's, but it's, I'm enthralled with it. I really am. Because there's information in there that goes beyond, well, for instance this, okay, she says, I have experienced dolphin and whale disappearances in the ocean. Mm-hmm. It is a mystery, the details of which I won't describe here, but I have given this a lot of thought, and I am still not sure if indeed the dolphins and the wise ones can dematerialize, or if they are creating a field of energy around us that makes us unable to see something that is going on around us, or temporarily gives us an experience of interrupted time. From the wise ones, I have learned about the unique characteristics of infrasound. This is a sound that can affect us emotionally, mentally, physically. vibrating internal organs, and multidimensionality. Dolphins and whales use it along with some animals such as giraffes, lions, elephants, and others to communicate and or to stun or paralyze a prey. Infrasound can be used to communicate over thousands of miles. These infrasonic waves are sound waves so low in frequency that the human ear cannot detect them. Human ears detect sound in the frequency range of about 20 to 20,000 hertz or cycles per second. Anything below 20 hertz is defined as infrasound, which, although not heard, is experienced in the form of pure vibrations. So that then is, and she called it, as you said, biological infrasound.
This is exciting. Our frequency band is definitely growing because even when I talk color, just like sight and sound, as a physical human being in this dimension right now, our frequency is so narrow. And we always think of it expanding higher, but why can't it expand totally and include the lower also?
Absolutely.
I'm so excited. Don't mind me. Continue on.
These waves can be produced spiritually by people who are trained to do this. It's called biological infrasound. I believe that in our progress of evolution, we are on a track to learn this ability. The dolphins and whales have shown me this. The wise ones have already learned it, and they use it non-aggressively as a safety measure for themselves and humans who unwittingly trespass in areas that are unsafe, not from Sasquatch, but wild animals and sometimes entities that could be harmful to humans. The wise ones have said that they came from before the Ice Age and they are our big brothers. They said they were like us when they lived at the time of the Ice Age, which implied to me that they have now changed and are different than us. Humans in the year, well, this is being written in 2005, are like the Sasquatch during the Ice Age. Could it be the Sasquatch of today have evolved many skills that confound us? In this evolution, they seem to have learned about infrasound emissions. The Sasquatch are able to create sound so low we cannot hear them. However, our body and our senses do experience them. Apparently, the Sasquatch can use sound to affect the environment. There are thousands of reports of Sasquatch contact where the wooded areas are suddenly inundated with odors so atrocious that people retreat with a burning sensation in their nostrils. They also are able to create a field of unnamed fear around humans that make them leave in a hurry, and also create so much fear that the people are reluctant to ever return to the location again. Not much amplitude is needed to produce negative effects on the human body and mind, and even mild infrasound exposure requires several hours or even days to reverse the symptoms. This is examples of biological infrasound.
Wow, do you think that's part of what they're using with mind control when they're using it in the negative?
Well, see, you didn't. It's interesting you mentioned Max because when I talked to Max, he told me that there was a triangular vehicle, a spacecraft that was over my property, and it was there to protect me. And 40 minutes later, with 4 other people who had been told that supposedly there's a triangular vehicle in the area, and that's about all they knew. Basically that's all I knew. And 40 minutes later, 5 people saw this thing.
I think I heard, did you say that on that show? I think I heard that part. I think you guys were all outside on the patio or something, and
we were outside next door in a picnic table. We had just eaten dinner. Yeah. Now, what happened was that I realized I'd seen many UFOs, so it's not an unusual or would instill fear in me or even awe, because I've seen some really weird things. But what happened to me was that as soon as I saw this picture of what she described as a triangular vehicle with a red light and a green light, and I said to the people there, because I had just turned to talk to the person next to me when I saw it in what I thought was the sky. And, so I said to the people there, and I pointed in the direction, I said, do you see that? Did you see something? And they all looked and, yep. And I said, does it look like a triangle? Yep. Well, Peter was the only one that was responding, yep. You know, but the others were just sitting there. And I said, does it have a red light and a green light? Yep. You know, well, when I saw the picture, my brain stopped recording.
Wow.
It was really weird because, after the fact, I talked to Peter and I said, well, tell me what you saw. And he saw it move behind a tree, go down south a little bit, and then turn around and go north. I never saw anything except that picture. It was like my brain refused to receive any more information. All right? And then the other friend of mine, she wouldn't talk about it. She drew me a picture. She's an artist. And the picture was a triangle with red and green lights, but the green light was in a different place than the red light, and it was not hard angles. It was all very soft. You know, it was not what I saw.
Right.
And so when the two other people that I haven't talked about actually come here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to ask them to tell me what they think they saw. Because what I was pretty convinced of theoretically was that because of the way my brain is, and I was very much aware of it at the time, I'm going like, why can't I seem to see anymore? Why am I not asking questions about this? Why am I not, you know, I mean, because most of the time when I'd see a UFO with people, I'd be going like, you see this light? Does it look like this? I'm asking questions the whole time, getting feedback. And yet none of that happened. I didn't really analyze what I was seeing, and my brain was like not wanting to work.
Right.
But I couldn't imagine that they could possibly put together a mind control event so that we see the same picture, 5 people, 40 minutes after the guy tells me this thing is there. So my 3D brain, you know, got back in it and said, I don't know if they could have done it that fast. But I kept playing it over in my head, and I'm a remote viewer. I can go back into time. All right? And I go back to that same instance. I'm back in my body. I'm looking at what's happening. And by God, it was just what I thought. It was like a picture. And there was no more analysis, no more movement. It just was a picture.
Like a flat image, like more like it was like a flat image. It was a picture. It wasn't actually, describe that. I don't know if I understand.
Well, it was like, Peter sees the thing moving and going and stuff.
Right.
I never analyzed. I never saw, it was like a snapshot. And I think what happened was that my brain realized that whatever I was seeing did not feel natural. And it shut down.
So you stopped it. Right. Yep.
Now, when it really became clear to me was, and this sounds stupid because, you know, I pride myself in asking questions and trying to research stuff, but I didn't think to go back there into the same place in the daylight. And it just so happens that, you know, like 3 or 4 weeks later, there's some other reason that I've got to go over and be sitting at that table and eating. And so I don't even think about the last time I was there until somebody mentioned something, and it made me remember this, and I turned to where I saw it, and there is no way in God's green earth that I would have seen the sky from where I was sitting and where I was looking.
Wow. So,
and I'm going, Cindy, why does this look like this? I can't see the sky, you know? She's going, well, when you told me what you saw, because she wasn't there. She was the one person that wasn't there. She said, well, when you told me what had happened, she said, I couldn't imagine where you were talking about in the sky because there's woods all around us. You can't see the sky. And she was right. I had a totally different memory vision of the trees not being there, and I could see the horizon. I have been in this same place 100 times.
So what does that mean to you? How did you take that to mean then? Was it an image put in your mind or in everyone's, or did you just block it? Or like what have you come to so far with that whole experience?
I do believe it was a mind projection. Somebody projected into our minds a scenario and an image.
Okay.
Depending on the person was the interpretation.
Right.
So the person who saw the lights in opposite ways and also saw it very round was seeing, she was sure it was a Palladian. She said, oh, the Palladians are here. Okay, so her whole interpretation of what she saw was based on her belief that she is in contact with the Palladians. Okay, now Peter's got a kind of he's anal, you know. I mean, he tells a story. The story goes on forever and ever and ever. So of course he's going to see something, and his mind is going to create a story about it.
Right.
My mind is been analyzed by myself. I mean, I know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm feeling. I'm just one of these obnoxious people that is so into myself that I know myself better than anybody else in the world, or I ever will or care to. I love who I am, but I know myself. And when that signal came in, it registered, but everything in me said that's not natural. Right. And it shut down without me saying shut down.
Actually good.
You know?
So now tie this back to the biological or the infrasounds, and because we got on this, the mind control, because how they were saying they can create a field in certain areas to give you certain thoughts or feelings or smells, and then that made me think, because every kind of ability can be used for the greater good of the all, or for control, or for negative. So it made me click in and think this could be a form that the military, or whatever you want to call it, that's using it for ill will, could also use this infrasound, and maybe that's the one that's not biological. I don't know, because this is all new information to me.
Okay, well,
use it for mind control.
Yeah, let me put it to you in scientific kind of terminology, okay?
Okay.
When I was in the military, I was an electronic warfare officer, so I began to understand about signals and radio and all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
When you put out a signal that's called a carrier wave, all right, you send it from a transmitter, and then it goes through a receiver. Mm-hmm. That is a signal that is uniform and universal, and both the transmitter and the receiver know exactly what it's supposed to be.
Right.
So at the transceiver, at the what did I just say? At the transformer, at the the one that's putting it out. Okay. Yes. At that point, if you add another vibration to the carrier wave, like you can add sound. The sound of this signal is going over the internet carrier wave, and the fact that I and you are adding our energy frequencies to that carrier wave, it's being carried on it, then on the other side, the receiver says, okay, all of this other stuff that's on top of the carrier wave, we know what that is. So they take out the carrier wave, and now they've got voice and music and sound and everything else. You understand that?
So they take out the carrier wave and just leave the one they added? Is that
Yes, and then that's translated by the receiver through sound or television or whatever it is.
Okay.
So that's why they say you've got a carrier wave. So it's really an energy wave that is, just carrying these other sounds along with it. And so they can read these other sounds because they're added to the carrier wave. And so they just, electronically take out those things and make it into voice or video or whatever.
Okay. I wasn't following at first, but I got it now.
You got it now?
The carrier wave's still there, but when they go to unwrap the information wave or whatever they're getting, they just ignore the carrier wave and take what was sent with it, sort of.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Okay,
right.
So same situation with these very, very low level frequencies. Now, when we're talking TV and radio and that sort of thing, if you think of, like the image, the scope image, if you were seeing the wave, okay, like on a piece of paper, okay, you would see, very, very short humps going up and down, up and down, up and down, very short, they're not going very far. and they're pretty together, okay? Now, this is where our typical communications is occurring in these, in this particular wavelength. When you're talking about the biological infrasound concept, you're talking about a wave that is hundreds of, I don't know how, but I believe it is hundreds of miles from one peak to another.
Right. They're long and deep, just like the color red. The lower you get on the frequency in your chakras, on the earth, on anything lower, is usually a longer, wider wave. And then the higher you get, or, in the frequency, it gets shorter and quicker together in the speed. At least that's what I was taught. I don't know if that's...
No, that's very true. Okay. So what you got now is you got this very, very long wave, okay, that can be a carrier wave carrying other stuff on it.
Oh.
Okay. Now, because you're working in frequencies of emotion, of your biological human energy fields, at that level, the frequency of your liver, the frequency of your heart, all of these different frequency levels, okay? And when you're using one of these very long waves, you can attach to that long wave emotional energy signatures, so that when it hits your body, your body is hit with these emotional things, because your body is being hit with a wave. It doesn't know enough to take the wave out, but your body's not asking for information. It's being hit with these very, very emotionally triggered energy level stuff.
Cancer and heart attacks and things like that.
That's precisely how it's done.
Wow. Hello. So, now, if this is the case, which feels exactly right to me, from what I've heard or understood, the more we're aware, the more we're conscious, which is not the easiest thing on this plane, and the higher we have our frequency, and the more we let go and really, I don't know how to describe it. Supposedly, if you get at a certain frequency in your own vibration, this cannot touch you. But from what I was told in Sedona, then they, whoever they are, I hate to even use that term, but that other frequencies are then developed. But does this ever end? And is there anything that can be done about it? Maybe I'm off track here.
No, you're not, because what's happened is that you've got a certain number of people that have a certain similar. Let me put it this way. Okay, you've got an FM radio and you've got an AM radio.
Yep.
Okay, they work on within the same category of frequencies, but one of them is looking at higher frequencies and the other one's looking at lower frequencies. Okay, so you've got two different types of radios. Well, for a long time, the only radio out there was the AM.
Yep.
Then they developed FM. An AM radio will not hear FM. An FM will not hear AM. All right? So when they are developing this concept of being able to manipulate, they've got to decide, are they going to manipulate an AM or are they going to manipulate an FM?
Okay.
So most people, being AM, they say, well, this is the vast majority are AM people, so let's go after them.
Gotcha.
All right? Now, the problem with FM people is that it's very frequency dependent. One of the reasons that they went to FM, the higher frequencies, is because you could put more radio stations in less space of the frequency spectrum, so that you can put more radio stations in. They operate on a more narrow band. All right? So which means that every radio station is much, much more specific. In AM, you can go from, 5 to 15. And in FM, you're going from 0.5 to 1. Okay? So it's much harder to figure out a radio station and what their frequency is if you don't know beforehand. And that's the problem they have.
the reason why hive mind is more dangerous and hive mind is more like AM. And FM is more like where you've got all differences in that same band, but they're all slightly different.
Precisely.
Wow. Thank you. That was awesome explanation.
Yeah, and the key to it is, I mean, I've been accused of being mind controlled, by certain people. And the key is why am I not susceptible to mind control? It's because, my frequency is never the same. It's a rotating frequency. So you can't ever capture, and all people who are of a certain basic fundamental bioelectromagnetic construct, the people that put us together are not fools. They have rotating frequencies. You're never going to be able to get all of us.
You're only static when you go into zombie land. Nature isn't static. It's always in motion. It's always rotating. But a lot of us aren't natural anymore or don't follow the natural concepts because, I don't know, the information isn't out there.
Well, part of it is that you can't hardly get to a point of where most of us are on this station, the people that are being drawn to this station. You can't get to a certain point of enlightenment and awakening without having guides, without having spirit guides, angel guides, extraterrestrial. I don't know. There's guides. There's always spirit guides involved. And even when you're not completely healthy enough to be able to understand and to continue the vibrations, the switching, they can switch it. So if you come under attack, that's why you call on the angels,
Right. And I just read something the other day, and you take everything with a grain of salt, but it perked my whatever senses up, and it said that basically, we're going eventually to this place where we have a direct contact to source, and we won't need the teachers, guides, human or other. But they said that's about 200 years away, and everything's relative. But yes, because now it's getting different, but like when we were young, you didn't have a lot of human teachers, so if you're sensitive, yes, then the guides come in, but then the discernment comes in on what are you listening to and what vibration is that. But yes, and from what I read, because a lot of people are saying, well, now it's just us and we shouldn't listen to anything outside of our direct connection. But they said it's really about, it's quite a ways away. So yes, that is right now one of the best forms, but discernment's really necessary.
Well, I don't think you need discernment as a mental gyration, okay? I think what you need to do is to trust your heart, to trust your gut.
Right, your feeling, however you get information best. There's a few different ways, but you'll know it, you'll feel it, or you'll sense it. Yeah. Doesn't have to be necessarily mental.
I basically, am of the mind that if it feels good, it's probably good. If it feels bad, it's probably bad.
Yeah. Behavior. People know when, but they might ignore it unless they're, what are those people called that have no empathy? I'm not sure about
sociopaths.
Them. Yeah, I'm not sure. Or psychopaths. I don't know about them, but yeah.
A sociopath has no emphatic kind of response to anything. Okay. A psychopath is somebody that gets their jollies, so they are definitely emotionally connected.
But then the normal, in between that range and not those, they will know. They will sense when.
And people are telling you that no, you're gonna be tricked, but no, all you have to do is say show yourself. And I'll tell you something. Now this is another weird thing about Shungite, okay? But we have seen it too many times because we've been fooled. We have definitely been fooled, mostly because we're more inclined to if you seem to be positive towards shungite and you're, working towards it, we're going to trust you because we believe that, Gaia brought you to us. Right. So we would have this kind of attitude, but then these people would turn into be really sociopaths, Yeah. And so we questioned, what's all this about, But it was a demonstration. It was a total demonstration because if the bad side hadn't come into our lives, okay, pretending to be good, we wouldn't see what shungite can do because we call it the shungite knockdown. if so many times, particularly Stephanie, because she's out interfacing with the public all the time, she'll tell me, oh my God, I met this wonderful person and they really, and I gave them some shungite. And then the next time she sees them, she goes, oh my God, the shungite has revealed them. They are slime bags.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Because it's almost like,
it decloaks. It decloaks.
It decloaks people. It makes them real. They have to, it's weird. And like when, we've had a number of occasions where people told us that they had shungite pendants on and went to different groups, metaphysical groups, Wicca groups, this type of thing. And they were told to take the shungite off or leave.
Are you kidding?
Honest to God. And this is not just one or two times. This is more like 6 times. I've heard the same thing from different people all over the United States. And also, what's the other thing that happens with it but it forces people to become balanced, whether you're, working for one reason or another. And in that balance, you begin to lose your programming. And so, and that's what's really happening to them. So a lot of these people, they're going through hell right now because they're totally out of where they were. But it's a good hell.
Yeah, because I had read in your information when I finally got some, and you said, that it would, to get ready, that it could bring up some of the negative, which we're all trying to clear out anyway to hold more light. And then it's interesting you said that about how the people said to take it off and everything and about how getting you more balanced, because I didn't even think of that part of it since I've been wearing the pendant, plus I have it all over my house, that, I ordered and that you sent. I sent a picture that I took in January, I think. So it was this year of myself. I haven't taken any since. And my girlfriend, who hadn't seen me in a while, looked at the picture. She commented today about how much more depth or how she could feel the energy was different in me and more balanced and more depth. And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, really? But I do feel that way, and I never even thought about that shungite could have had a part in it. So thank you.
Well, like, for instance, one of the reasons that I highly recommend that everybody gets shungite is because I think that one of the reasons that I was not, that they were not able to really plant this mind thing in me is because I'm continually surrounded by shungite. I got shungite bracelets, I got pendants on, I got, it's all over the place. And the other thing is that they couldn't do that to me in my own yard. Right. I was next door. My yard's got 1/4 ton of shungite on it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I had to physically leave the yard for them to get anywhere near being able to do what they apparently
Maybe that's
did.
why everybody always feels so good over here when they come visit me. They love being over here in my little place.
Oh, people come over to Stephanie's house and they walk in and they say, I just need to be shungited, and they lay down on the couch, fall asleep, get up and walk out.
Funny. But anyway, we diverge, but that's fascinating.
Well, I want to tell you one more thing about the shungite that is really interesting. Walt right now, I really have so many products in the store that it's difficult to manage them. So when Walt comes up with a new device, I tell him, fine, you deal with it. I'm not going to deal with it, right? Okay. So I'm not exactly sure what bracelet this woman was talking about, but he had made 2 shungite bracelets for this woman and her friend. And they end up going to a place, a psychic fair thing, where there was somebody taking pictures of auras.
Right.
So they had an aura picture taken without the bracelet.
Okay.
And the first girl, her aura was very fuzzy. They didn't get a really clear image of it. She put the bracelet on, boom, bright colors, solid. The second one, the same thing, didn't put it on, but the chakras were all out of balance. Put the bracelet on, boom, right back into balance.
Cool.
Now that's taking pictures of auras.
Right.
So it's very real, but again, what we're dealing with here when we're talking about the infrasound.
Yeah.
Well, okay, she does something else just to kind of finish the subject. She says infrasound is still relatively new science. No. It's very well known. It's just that it's not being talked about. They're not telling us this.
Right.
Non-biological sources of infrasound abound, including thunder, and I gotta tell you, how many dogs have you had that started getting antsy and you never heard the thunder until, 20 minutes later?
Yep.
They hear it, they feel it. Or earthquakes.
React ahead of them. Yeah.
Same thing. Well, she says this: air turbulence, volcanoes, earthquakes, jet engines, waves and ships in the ocean, to name a few. Infrasound waves hug the ground. That's part of their problem. The infrasound waves hug the ground and travel for long distances without losing strength because they're that terribly long,
right.
What you call it? The wavelength is so long. That's why they started using them back way, probably the 60s or before that, with the Navy ships for communications. Okay, so in the same way that you would use a radio with a carrier wave, you're using a low-level one in order to go long distances within the ocean environment.
Okay.
So, and they had sites in North America where they would send out the sounds and they would pick them up in submarines, so that's where it all really started developing. And of course now we got to the end here, and I just want to remind everybody that we've got feedback on the line, Colleen, that this is listener supported media, and the donate buttons are on both Wolf Spirit Radio's website and on Haggy Shack's website. And you just have to give us a little bit of money just to participate in the energy that, it's energy exchange. The more you give, even if it's $1, the more you give individually what you can is just more energy into what we're trying to do here. And it's growing and it's getting better and it's getting more exciting. And, we thank you so much for having participated and leading us down this trail. The other thing you can do is you become a member on Wolf Spirit Radio, wolfspiritradio.com, and you can get access to the archives, okay? And the archives, we call them a shipload of archives because they go back for a very long time with a lot of different hosts, a lot of different guests. And it's a reoccurring, every month you'll be asked, that you want to continue. So it's not one of those reoccurring things that it ends up on your credit card every month. Deb, is there something, one other point that we should make here?
No, but I think we should have a continued conversation at some point. You were going to get into the thing about Inner Earth, and we didn't even get there. So maybe you and me can talk private on that at some point. But, this was interesting, and I'm sure we can continue it maybe next month. Who knows?
Yeah, next month. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Next month when you come on,
okay,
you and I will have both looked at Inner Earth.
Right. And I'll look up some of those names that I can't remember, too.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Colleen, you got something that you'd like to throw in?
No, I was just trying to let you know a few minutes ago that we had a connection issue, so we went down for about a minute.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, the lights blinked here. I don't know if it was me or not, but maybe that's the Sasquatch saying thank you. At least I'm not smelling smoke.
Right. God.
Oh. So I suspect that in the coming days, people go out and look and see if you can't see the Sasquatch.
And start leaving them little gifts if you're in a
Little gifts.
area.
Because I don't think that, my feeling from them is that you don't have to go out to where they are. They can come to you. At one time she got a message from Medicine Woman and said, we cannot come across the salt waters. And she said I could communicate with them etherically, but apparently they can travel all over land, but they don't walk across water, which I found amusing. Because they do seem to have a sense of humor. They said that a lot of times things will disappear and then they all of a sudden appear someplace that the person who owned them knows, no, I did not do that. Like one guy, he lost his hat, and when he found it, it was on a stick in the middle of near the fireplace, and it was sitting on the stick. So.
Well, thank you for suggesting this topic and sending that article, and I will continue looking more into that article. It was fun.
Yeah, I'm not even finished with it yet. And I have to say this. I say this all the time. Thank you, Walter, for pointing this out.
Oh.
It was Walt again giving me
Thank you, Walt.
Yeah, you see her when he's not here even. Tomorrow he will be on with me on Simon Says.
Okay.
And that's tomorrow on Wolf Spirit, and it's with, what happens is that Simon Parks does a show at 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock Eastern. Mm-hmm. And then Walt and I get on and we try to figure out what Simon just said.
I'll catch that on archives. I'll be hugging people at the park, and then I've got a benefit concert to go to, but I'll catch it in the archives for sure.
You're going to be hugging people?
I do those free hugs at our little park here.
Oh, man. I got to tell you, today I had to go out to the post office, and I had to go over to the grocery store, and I had to go to a birthday party, so I was really on a time crunch thing, Mm-hmm. And when I come out of the grocery store, out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman that I only see her in the bread department, but there's a big counter between us.
Right.
And she's one of these people, you know them, that you see them at the grocery store, they're clerks or whatever, but you feel this heart thing with them.
Yep.
And there she was sitting at a table with no counter between us.
Aww.
And I looked at her and I said, oh my God, I'm going to get to hug you.
Oh.
And we hugged, and it was, just so special. It made my day, I gotta tell you. Brings the tears to my eyes just thinking about it. So I so honor the fact that you hug people.
I love it. I know we're out of time. I have a story about that, too, that ties into my hairdressing days, but to be continued next month.
To be continued. And it is going to be continued because you're going to join us every first Saturday of every month. Okay. And next week we're going to have Annette. Sassy Annette's going to be on. She's going to be our number 2 Saturday of the month, and then following that is going to be Emily Norcross is going to be our third.
Yay! And
I'll let you know who the fourth one is because I've got somebody in mind, and we're going to see if we can't pull that off too. Okay. I'm so excited about what is happening to the show because bringing you guys. Well, you notice that sometimes Colleen doesn't say much. She's not much. She's kind of a dud as a co-host, I gotta tell you. But she is a brilliant producer. I'm just so impressed with how she can pull all these things together and do all the things. And yes, go to her website. The website is getting better on a daily basis. The shows that she's getting, the young people, Deb. We're actually getting young people who are being hosts.
Yay!
It's all very, very exciting. And did I miss anything, Colleen? Because we got Emily Norcross coming up. Emily's coming up after us on Indigo Child.
Yeah.
She calls it Up Crossers Creek. I don't exactly know why. Did she say why it's called that?
Well, I would imagine Norcross and Up Crossers Creek, up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah, I got that, but I wasn't sure. This is funny. Anyway, thank you so much, Deb. We'll see you next month. And Miss Colleen, you're going to take us out of here, and thank you so much out there. We so appreciate your support, and we had fun. We had fun, didn't we? Yeah, we must have done something right if we had fun.
Thank you both.
Be safe, sweetie. Good night.
See y'all later.
Love you.
Say what? Say What radio show. With no agenda. It's always a surprise. But if we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong. Saturdays, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 5 Pacific. On Haggy Shack Radio at haggyshack.com. Say what?